All right, what's up, people? Today we're talking about 5 flavor secrets that chefs use that home cooks don't know. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. It's about to get flavorful. Today we're going to talk about what truly separates chef-level cooking from home cooking. It's all about techniques and not necessarily the ingredients, all right? Most home cooks think that chefs have better ingredients, better tools. But what really separates us is the fact that we know how to build flavor, right? So today I'm gonna start with 5 key things that help you understand how to really build flavor and in turn help you to be a better home cook, right? AKA the chef in your house. All right, let's get into it. So number 1, flavor foundation, super important. Think of aromatics like onions, garlic, right? A lot of people rush through this process when you are sauteing your aromatics, and this is one of the things that chefs do very well. We understand that by gradually caramelizing your onions and your garlic, the flavor that comes out of that is 10 times better than if you were to rush through sauteing this or starting at a very high temperature and ending up burning or scorching your onions and garlic. Because what people don't realize is that there is a high sugar content in onions and garlic. So if your saute pan is too hot, it will burn, right? Especially garlic. So you want to slowly caramelize this, right? And by doing that, you allow the sugars to slowly do their thing, and this brings out the natural sweetness in your onions and your garlic. And in that is where you really create that foundation and where you really get to accentuate, where you get to really take your level up, right? Because by doing this, it allows you to bring out more flavor, and then that creates this beautiful base for you to start with your stir fries, with your sauces, with your vinaigrettes, whatever you would be using caramelized onions and garlic for, even chilies, right? This is the way to do it. So make sure you don't rush this process, right? You want to take your time and you want to make sure that you're caramelizing these evenly, right? If some of it's starting to scorch, take the pan off completely to the side, let it cool down a little bit, and then bring it back to temperature and keep sauteing until you have a very even color throughout your aromatics. All right, number 2, the balance, right? Super important. This is the chef's equation. We're talking heat, we're talking sweet, we're talking acid, we're talking fat, right? We're talking flavors that equal harmony, right? So it's super important to make sure that you get the right balance when it comes to these different flavor profiles. It's like, how much do I add of a particular one to make sure that my dish really sings, right? And salt brings out flavor in things. So you want to pay attention to how much salt you add. Too much salt, obviously, then you kill your dish, right? Same thing with sweetness, same thing with acidity, right? But there are times when a little bit of acid really brings out flavors in different things, right? Like adding lemon zest, right? Being able to add lime zest, knowing when to add lime juice or lemon juice versus zest, right? This is where that balance comes in, right? You know, even adding a pinch of salt when you're making desserts. This is super important as well, right? A lot of people don't think, but when you realize it, salt helps to bring out that flavor even with the sweetness. So you really want to pay attention to how you're adding these flavors, how you're adding these particular things, you're right? And I'm talking about the acidity, we're talking about the fat, you know, and that fat could be oil, it could be avocados, it could be anything that provides you that fat content, right? Super, super important, you know. And then of course, there is the salt aspect of this, where when you're seasoning, you can season with a lot of different things. Acidity also brings out salt. So be very careful if your recipe calls for salt and acidity. You don't want to put too much of one or the other because it will overpower and then you will end up with something that you really don't want, all right? So this is where that balance is key. So chefs, you know, when we're cooking, these are things that's always playing in the back of our mind, right? We want to make sure that we are paying attention to creating this balance, this well-balanced dish, right? Regardless of what it is, if it's a vinaigrette, if it's a dressing, if it's a salad, if it's a soup. I mean, we find ways to create these different flavor profiles, and by doing that, it allows us to create this well-balanced dish. Number 3, contrast, right? That's the secret weapon when it comes to chefs and how we do. And what do I mean by that? We're talking texture, we're talking temperature, we're talking visual pop, right? When you think about it, you know, sometimes, have you ever gone out to eat and you get a dish and it's like one note? Everything is just like pudding, right? There's no texture profiles, there's nothing going on. Everything is just one dimensional, it's one note. That's where the issue comes in, right? So as a chef, we're always thinking of ways to basically create a party in your on your taste buds, right? So by adding texture to a pudding, you know, by adding things like coconut flakes or nuts, right? Granola, a salad, right? If you just have leafy greens, you know, what are you adding to it to provide texture, right? So, you know, there are different things. There is breadcrumbs, there is croutons, there are nuts, you know, dried fruit, you know, seeds, grains. There are a bunch of different things, right? A plethora of things that you can add to create that texture component. And then visually, of course, you know, that also brings out a lot of contrast because you want to be able to visually create a stunning dish, right? It shouldn't only taste good, it should look good as well, right? So the contrast really plays in a lot into that. And I feel, you know, it's super important. And, you know, your tongue likes when there's different things going on, like hot and cold, you know, sweet and sour. You know, that's why sweet and sour is such a big thing, right? Because it's two completely opposite things going on at the same time. So it's like, wow, what is this? And it's really exciting for you to eat, right? So really pay attention to when you're creating dishes to have different flavor profiles. And as a plant-based chef, this is something that is super important, especially for anyone that's creating plant-based meals, right? You wanna be able to create some kind of textural component so your food doesn't seem one-dimensional. Got it? Number 4 is consistency, right? Super, super important. Now, we're talking about seasoning, right? And this is something that you need to understand very quickly and very early. When you're cooking, you want to season in layers. You don't want to wait till the end to season. You don't want to just season it in the beginning, right? Like for instance, if I am making a stir fry, right? I'll get all of the different components that I'm going to add to this stir fry and I'm going to prep them individually. Like I'm not going to take my mushrooms, my peppers, my onions, my bok choy, my cabbage, my carrots, put them all into the saute pan at the same time and try to cook them all together. Like that's crazy, right? But a lot of people do that. And this is one of the things that they don't understand, right? Different vegetables cook at different temperatures. They cook at different times. They finish cooking at different times. So it's important to understand this. So the way you do this successfully is by cooking each individual thing differently at specific times. So I would char my cabbage by itself, I would char my cauliflower, I would saute my mushrooms, right? I will blanch or I will char my broccoli, my bok choy, whatever it is that I'm using for my stir fry. And of course, as I'm doing this, I would season each one of them individually. So this way, when I'm ready to make my stir fry, basically all I'm doing is combining everything, giving it that final seasoning touch, and then we're good to go. So it doesn't matter what I bite, it doesn't matter where I pick up a spoon or a fork or use my chopsticks to grab, everything is gonna be tasting super flavorful because everything was seasoned and prepared individually first and then brought together, right? This is something that a lot of people miss out on, and this is how you can really create massive flavor by layering your seasoning, right? Super important, don't forget this. Layer your seasoning each and every step of the way as you go through the cooking process of anything that you're making. Got it? Number 5, the finish, right? The finishing touches, right? The garnishing, right? Super, super important. When you're home and you're cooking, right? A lot of people will just stop too soon, right? They'll end abruptly, right? When you go to a restaurant, we always have some kind of finishing stuff going on, like either finishing salt, drizzling some oil at the end to finish it, right? Adding some herbs, some microgreens, right? A little zest on top, right? These are things that are gonna carry your dish all the way through and really make your dish sing, right? So super, super important to pay attention to the finishing of your dish when it's complete. Like if you make a soup, drizzle some nice extra virgin olive oil on top, hit it with a dash of spice, you know, hit it with some zest, finish it with some, you know, candied nuts, you know, there's so many different things, a splash of acidity, right? These are things that you do that can really make your dish pop and sing at the end, right? So make sure whatever it is that you're making, make sure you finish it, right? Don't just rush, put it on the plate and serve it, right? Do the final touches, you know, the nuances, make it, you know, make it do what it do, right? And I'm telling you, it's gonna change the way you completely do your food from start to finish. So here's the cheat sheet: depth, balance, contrast, consistency, and finish. All right, with these, you are, how do I say? cooking like a pro. And that is how chefs cook with intention, not luck, all right? It's a very thoughtful process. And this is something that we keep in our mind 24/7, anytime we are cooking, home or at work. If this has helped you think like a chef, imagine what you can learn inside the Rich Life School. This is where we go deeper into flavor creation, flavor systems, right? Where we even show you how to turn your culinary brilliance into income, all right? Join me. The link is in the description. Catch you on the inside of school, the Rich Life. Ciao.